So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alison Woodall, and I have an online guide called Make the Move that shows you how to plan your move to a new state in the USA, because my goal is to get you as much information as possible to minimize the cost and the stress and the exhaustion that happens when you move to a new state. So today I am going to talk to you about how to prepare your kids for your move. And you may be asking, who am I to be able to tell you how to do that? Well, I have moved my kids 4 times in the last 4 years, and we're already planning our next move. And the best part is my kids are looking forward to moving because they see it as an adventure and a way to discover new places, learn new things, meet new people, and just live a really interesting life. Each of our moves has been far from perfect. We have moved because we had no choice, and we've moved when it sounded like fun. We moved when we had months to plan our move, and we moved in 8 days. So my kids have pretty much done it all. So why am I telling you this? It's because I want you to know that while your reasons for moving and your relationship with your children is unique, I do understand so many of your fears and your doubts, and I hope that what I'm going to share with you in the next 30 to 40 minutes will make moving to a new state a great experience for your whole family. And if you would like a little more guidance, you can download my Make the Move guide at AlisonWoodall.com, and through a series of short videos and detailed check sheets, I will help you decide where to move to, figure out your budget, and plan for all the issues that go along with moving, like finding a home and a job and healthcare. And then I'll guide you as you sort and pack up all of your stuff and move it. But most importantly, I will help you deal with your doubts and fears. Feelings like, am I doing the right thing? Will our lives be better? These feelings are all perfectly normal, and I have a whole section in Make the Move to help you deal with that roller coaster of emotions that you feel during your move. And you can download Make the Move at AlisonWoodall.com or by clicking the link in the post below. So if you have watched any of my other videos, you will know that I always start with a few points that you need to keep in mind as we go through the rest of the training. The most important thing for you to remember is that your kids are going to be looking for you for how to behave. If you are happy and excited about your move, your kids will be too. But if you're stressed and anxious, guess what? They will be as well. So how do you figure out how to lead by example and get your kids excited about your move when you may be feeling nervous about the future or maybe have doubts about whether moving is the right thing to do? Well, if you're just starting to plan your move, then you know that when you have so many different options available to you, it can be really stressful. But once you get further on in your journey and you've decided on a state and maybe narrowed it down to 2 or 3 towns, you feel much more confident about your decisions, and you can start to actually imagine what life would be like in each place. Well, it's exactly the same with your kids. If you ask them, where do you want to move to? We're moving to a new state. That is going to stress them out. But if you suggest a couple of states that you could move to and also describe what their life might be like, it's going to feel a lot less overwhelming to them. So the first thing I want you to remember is don't discuss your move with your kids unless you know exactly what you want and you've found 3 or 4 places that you would like to move to. And again, if you need guidance on finding exactly, where would be the best place for you or how to decide where to move to, you can download my Make the Move guide at AlisonWoodall.com, and that first module in that planner will help you get very clear on this. But when you get to the stage where you've got 3 or 4 places that you think sound like fun to move to, you can talk with confidence about moving because you have a clear idea of what you want and why the move will be so great for your family, and you also know enough about each area to get your kids interested and maybe even a little bit excited about your move. And when your kids see that you are confident about moving, it's going to make them feel more confident too. And obviously, the older your kids are, the sooner that you can tell them about the move and the more involved they can be in the decision-making process. The second thing to keep in mind is that you must remember that you are the parent, so you get to decide what is right for your family. If you have strong-willed kids or you have kids that are used to getting their own way, their first reaction to being told, that we're moving is probably going to be like, I'm not moving and leaving my friends, or, oh my goodness, how could you do this to me? But that's just their instinctive reaction, and I'll show you how to deal with this as we get through into the different stages of moving. But remember, you are the adult and you know what is best for your children. Just like you try to give them reasonable bedtimes and to make them eat, a reasonably healthy diet, you also get to decide the best place for them to live. And then number 3, which you're going to hear me talk about so much as we go through the different stages of moving, you have to be an example for your children. Even if you don't feel brave and adventurous, this is the time to push your limits and act as if you feel confident about your move, just so that you can be a good example for your kids. And the clearer you are on what you want and what you can afford, the easier it's going to be for you to find a place to love, so you can actually feel confident about that move. And if you tell your kids often enough that your move is going to be an adventure and that your lives are going to be better, you're eventually going to start to believe the things you say. And before you know it, you will have become the brave, adventurous person that you've always wanted to be, even if you've never been that kind of person before. And I always tell the people that I coach, moving is your chance to reinvent yourself and become that person that you've always wanted to be, who is brave and confident and, confidently moves to a new state. And then you can be the best kind of role model for your children. So that's point number 3. Point number 4 is by moving to a new state, you are giving your kids the best life skills imaginable, and you're showing them that they can move anywhere and do anything that they want with their lives. They don't have to be stuck in one place for their whole life. Think about how you would feel right now if you'd moved several times when you were younger with your parents to guide you. You'd have that mindset of, my parents moved and it turned out great, so I can do it too. And maybe that is actually why you are moving. I know both my parents moved to different countries, not just different states, different countries when they were in their 20s, just because it sounded like fun. And so did a couple of my aunts and one of my uncles, and many of my cousins. It's just something that my family does. So I grew up knowing that moving to a new country was a great experience, and it was something that I wanted to do. So think about moving to a new state as a gift that you are giving your children. And I always say, use your children as the reason to move, not the excuse to stay where you are. And then lastly, number 5, you get to decide what moving means for your family, and it should always mean something positive. What do I mean by this? Well, people are always going to have opinions about what you do, and many people will judge you negatively for your decision to move to a new state. Some people will tell you that you are ripping your kids away from your friends and ruining their life. But you don't have to think like that. You can decide that moving is going to teach your kids to make new friends and become part of a new community, and that they'll also learn how to keep in contact with old friends in other states. I know from experience that if you tell your kids often enough about the benefits of moving, they will believe you, and other people's opinions really won't matter. I know this because we lived in a 27-foot camper for 18 months, and then on our next move, we made our 6th grade daughter and our 7th grade son share a bedroom so that we could live in the most beautiful part of Tampa. Lots of people had opinions about both situations, but we kept telling our children all the benefits of living, minimal living, and they believed us. And those few years of living so closely together was one of the best things that we've ever done for our family, because we're incredibly close to our kids, and they have great memories from that time in our lives. So to recap, as I go through the different stages of moving with kids, keep these 5 things in mind. Number 1, decide what you want and find 3 or 4 places that you like before you discuss your move with your kids. Number 2, you get to decide where your family lives because you are the adult. Number 3, be the best example that you can be for your children. And number 4, moving to a new state is going to give your kids incredible life skills and just open up the world to them. And then finally, number 5, you get to decide what the move means for your family, and you don't let other people judge your decisions. Okay. So keep those 5 things in mind, and now we're going to go through each of the different stages of moving and how you can prepare your kids at each stage. And there are 6 stages to go through. Stage number 1 is when you are thinking about moving. Just like I mentioned, I think that the perfect time to discuss moving with your kids is when you found 3 or 4 places that you like the sound of and you have like a rough timeline for your move. But you need to keep that initial conversation very general. For example, how would you feel if we moved to Tennessee? How would you feel if we moved to Texas? And don't tell your kids how you feel or what you think they should feel. See what they genuinely think and feel, because you may be surprised that actually they quite like the idea of a fresh start in a new state. I know that my son did. If they are resistant, ask them what they're worried about and what would make making that move easier for them. Usually their main fears are things like losing touch with friends and not making any new friends, or being the new kid in school. And sometimes their fears can be as simple as, what will my new bedroom look like? I've had that question as well from one of my kids. All of these issues are reasonably easy to deal with, and with a little bit of planning and preparation, you can find a way to make your kids comfortable with the idea of moving. But in that initial conversation, you just want to sow that seed of making them think about moving, and then just let them sit with their thoughts. If they keep answering questions, obviously you're going to answer them, but try to keep the conversation lighthearted and vague, especially if your kids have an extreme or an angry reaction. Usually that kind of reaction is just fear of the unknown. And as you start to plan your move and they learn more and think more about the move, they are going to become less anxious or fearful, and hopefully less angry. But like I said earlier, the younger your kids are, the longer I suggest you wait to tell them about the move, and the less involved they get in the decision-making process. But older children, especially teens, can have a say in maybe which town or neighborhood or home you eventually choose. And that takes me to stage number 2, which is deciding where to move to. Once you are about 60% certain that your move is going to happen, and you're really clear on what you want and what you can afford, then this is the stage when you get your kids involved in the planning process, if they're old enough. Get them to think about what they love about their current life and what they want in their new state. What kind of schools do they want to go to? What extracurricular activities do they want to have access to, or sports? Do they want to live near mountains or lakes or rivers or beaches? Do they want to live downtown, in a big neighborhood, in a small neighborhood, or maybe out in the country? And what kind of house or backyard would they like? And when you ask these questions, make sure your kids know that life is all about compromise. They aren't going to get everything on their wish list, just like you won't get everything that you're hoping for when you move to a new state. But it's okay at this stage to dream and get excited about what the future holds for you. You'll also want to ask them, what do they want to be different about their new life? Do they want to spend more time outside? Do they want to live closer to new friends? Do they want to have more family time? And you also need to discuss what they think they're going to miss about their current life. Friends is obviously, the obvious thing that they're going to miss, but there'll be lots of things that they take for granted about their current life and where you currently live that may not be available in your new state. Something like beaches is obviously an obvious thing if you're moving somewhere to the Midwest or maybe to the south away from the coast. But a really weird example of something that you never really think about. When we lived in Florida and California, there were sidewalks everywhere. So my kids had tons of freedom because they could walk everywhere. But where we live right now, there are no sidewalks. So my kids are much more limited in where they can go with their friends, because if they're walking, they have to walk alongside a main road, which I'm not comfortable with. So for our next move, sidewalks are a must for my kids. If you download my Make the Move guide, I go into much more detail about the questions that you need to ask yourself and your kids to help you get very clear on what you want from your life in your new state, because that is critical to finding the perfect place to move to. And when you're in that kind of deciding where to move stage, when your kids tell you how they feel or what makes them scared at the thought of moving, listen with empathy. I know there have been several people who've been posting in this event saying, just tell your kids to get in the car, or say, we're going and that's it. And while I agree that you have the final say, and I don't believe in giving in to my kids' demands, I always want moving to be a great experience for them. So we try to find a solution to any of our kids' kind of main concerns, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. But the most important thing at this stage is to lead by example. Remember, this is one of the 5 things that you need to think about as you're moving. Don't share your deep, dark fears with your kids, particularly if they're, huge financial worries. Keep those for your spouse or your partner or close friends. But you can share with your kids those things that make you feel a little bit nervous about your move, and share how you're dealing with those concerns. But then make sure you also discuss all of the things that you're looking forward to, so that your kids can learn how to focus on the positives of every situation, not just the negatives. And the best way that I have found to get my kids excited about moving is to plan a road trip to visit all the places that you're thinking about moving to. The older your kids are, the more they can get involved in planning the places that they want to stop and all the things that they want to see and do. And if you can stop by potential schools in the towns that you like, that's also going to help your kids to imagine what life could be like in any of the towns that you are visiting. But make sure if you plan a road trip to visit the places that you like the sound of, that the focus of your trip is exploring and having fun. Because as soon as you put pressure on yourself to find that perfect town and the perfect home, it adds a whole new level of stress that is going to affect your kids' experience too. And if you don't have the time or the money to be able to take your kids to visit somewhere before you move, we have moved 3 times to places that we'd never been to before, and our kids were fine with that decision because we had done so much research online, and my husband and I were confident that it was the right move for our family, and our kids trusted us. So if you can't visit, spend as much time online as possible to get a feel for the kind of the places that you like, you think that you might be able to move to, and get your kids to do the same. TikTok, YouTube, and blogs are great sources of inspiration and information for your kids about where you are planning to move to. And that takes us to stage 3, which is actually planning your move. Once you know which town, neighborhood, or school district you'd like to move to, you can start putting offers in on homes or applying to rent places. The older your kids are, the more involved they're going to be in this part of the process. For younger kids, choices like which toys they get to take with them or what color they're going to paint their new bedroom is usually enough choice for them to feel like they have some kind of control over the move. But older kids could get to choose which school district they'd prefer so that you can decide which homes to put offers in on first. But make sure that your kids know that those offers may fall through and plans may change, and that's just part of life. And during this planning process, you are going to get so many chances to be a great example for your kids because offers are going to fall through, plans are going to change, and things are going to go wrong. And if you can deal with each of those issues calmly and with like the minimum stress possible, you are going to become an excellent role model for your children and how they should behave under stress. And at this stage, when the move is starting to get real and everybody's starting in the family starting to think about the things they're leaving behind, you need to talk about how different your lives will be in your new state, what will be better and what could possibly be worse. When my kids worry about things like making friends or fitting in at school, we always validate their concerns, but we also focus on asking how they would fix that issue. Don't let your kids play the victim or make you feel guilty. Help them to solve their problems in advance and run through how different scenarios could play out with a positive outcome. My kids also did a lot of research about all of the things that they wanted to do in their new state. Skiing and hiking and camping were on their list of things to do when we moved to California, and skating, kayaking, and surfing were all on the list when we moved to Florida. And thinking about all of those things that they'd get to do when we made that move to our new state helped them to focus less on the things that they were leaving behind and helped them to look forward to all the things that they were going to be able to do once we moved. And that takes me to stage number 4, which is actually making the move. This is when you pack up and hit the road. And to me, this is the worst stage because you are all just completely exhausted and anxious, and you may at this stage be questioning your decision to move. And that is all completely normal. But there's also so much hope and excitement because your move is finally happening. And the longer it's taken you to plan your move, the more excited you are going to be. And also, the more doubt you'll have. So it's a very strange kind of stage of the moving process. But the older your kids are, the more that they need to help you. Because remember, you are teaching them life lessons like endurance and pushing through when you're tired. Sorting and packing are vital life lessons, so help them to sort their stuff so that they only take the things that they need. But also remember to keep items that they'll treasure when they're older. I have a big plastic tote for all of the sentimental things from when my kids were little, and I also have I give the kids one tote each so that they can put all of their things that they want to be able to keep too. And that's in addition to everything that they just pack up in their room. Even if your kids are really little, they can do an initial sort on their toys. So give all of your kids an age appropriate job so that they all feel involved and important. My kids are teens, so they pack their rooms, they help dismantle furniture and load the pod or the U-Haul, depending on which one we're using. And the only reason that we are able to move as often as we do is because they are so involved in the whole process, and their help is completely invaluable. But my favorite mantra during the packing stage is done is better than perfect. And I know that there's some perfectionists out there, and when they pack up a house, everything's labeled and there's inventories, and all of that is wonderful if you're doing it yourself and you have plenty of time. But if your kids are getting involved, it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. As long as it's done reasonably well, that's going to be okay. So I encourage you to adopt that mantra. Done is better than perfect. And the other important thing is, don't let your kids stop when they're tired or bored. Only allow them to stop helping when they're done. Perseverance and endurance are also vital life skills that they need to learn. And also, going back to that leading by example, make sure that you are showing them that you're also keeping going until all the boxes are packed or the rooms are cleared. Our family motto is family, fun, and teamwork. And while your kids may complain about helping, if you praise them and make them feel valued and important, it will bring you so much closer as a family. And no matter how stressed you are, keep a positive attitude and try to keep your meltdowns, because there probably will be one or two. Keep those meltdowns for your spouse or your partner, or just go into your room and close the door. Don't show your kids, that side of moving. And as I always say to myself, when things go wrong, if you can deal with it tomorrow, it's really not that big a deal. And I know that doesn't help much in the moment or when something stressful happens, but try to keep that in mind. And then on a completely practical note, when you get to the packing up and moving stage, make sure that your kids have contact information for all of their friends and a way to stay in touch, because losing contact with friends is usually their biggest worry at this stage. If you have very strict controls on social media, is there any way that you could maybe relax them a little bit just to allow your kids to stay in touch with the friends that they're leaving behind? It's going to make the process of moving just a little bit easier. For example, our kids were allowed to have Snapchat with very strict limits when we moved from Florida to California, so that they could stay in touch with all their Florida friends. And it made it so much easier when we moved from Florida to Georgia, because they were already connected to all their friends online. And if you have watched any of my other videos, you know that I love road trips. And if you are driving to your new state, plan as many fun stops on the way as possible, because this gives you and your kids something to really look forward to. And it makes that sadness of leaving your current state just a little bit easier to deal with. I am just going to have a sip of water. Okay, so stage 5 is settling into your new town. The first couple of months in your new state are going to be crazy. Everything is new. And this can be incredibly exciting after, planning your move for so long. But you also have no idea where anything is, like grocery stores and doctors and dentists. Your home may be in chaos. And if your kids are starting a new school and enrolling in new activities, there's so much to organize. And if you're starting a new job too, or if you're in temporary accommodation and looking for your future home, it's even more stressful. But you can make this stage much easier with a little bit of preparation. In the weeks before you leave your old state, get copies of your students' records, immunizations, transcripts, and any contact information that you might need for their previous school or previous healthcare providers. Get it all ready into a neatly organized package, ready for enrolling your kids in schools and activities in your new state. And then just before you leave your old state, get haircuts, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, and any other kind of appointments like that with your old providers. This is going to give you just a few months when you get to your new state before you have to deal with all of those kind of things. But most importantly, again, going back to leading by example, at this stage, you need to just accept the chaos and exhaustion you feel and understand that your kids are probably feeling the same way. They'll have meltdowns, they'll feel lonely, and they're scared. But if you know it's just part of this stage of the move, you'll be ready for it. And you can take a deep breath and tell yourself, I knew this was coming. I'm just going to take it one day at a time. And before I know it, we will be settled into our new life and enjoying every part of life in our new state. But at this stage, when you're just settling in spite of all the chaos and exhaustion and stress, you need to make time to help your kids make friends and fit into your new community. Organize play dates for your kids, or invite neighborhood kids over, or get together with other parents, even if they're people that you've met randomly and you hardly know them. And make time to enroll your kids in clubs and attend local activities, because the quickest way to feel like you belong in your new community and to make friends is to get involved in as many things as possible. You can always quit these things later on if you decide that they're not actually a good fit, but the more people that you meet initially, the easier it is to make friends and feel as if you belong. And it's especially useful if you're looking for recommendations for doctors and dentists and hairdressers and dry cleaners and vets and the million other services that you took for granted in your old state. And then we get to stage number 6, and this is a stage that most people don't think about. This is when you've been living in your new state for a few months. Many people are not prepared to feel loneliness, maybe even a little homesickness, and maybe just a tiny bit of regret after a few months. In my last live last month, I addressed all of these issues. So if you want to watch that video, it is pinned in the featured section on the homepage, and I will also link to the video in the notes while you're watching this video. I have been very lucky. Each time we've moved, my kids have adapted very well, and we prepared them as well as we could for the moves. So they didn't really suffer from loneliness or regret. But my daughter is much less outgoing than my son. And she had a couple of days when we first moved to Florida where she didn't know anyone and she sat alone at lunch. And we discussed how it was up to her to talk to people because they all knew each other and she was the new girl. She took my advice and she made the first move and asked some girls if she could sit with them. And now she has become an expert at making new friends in new schools. And she tells all of her friends that was such a great learning experience because it forced her to be confident. And because she was confident and pushed herself out of her comfort zone, she made some really good friends. If your child is shy or anxious, then talk them through each scenario that makes them anxious and role play how they can deal with each issue. And also make sure that you sign them up for as many school and community events as possible so that they are always meeting new kids. And signing your kids up for activities is also a great way for you to meet new people too, so that you can try to be so involved in your community that you're not going to have time to feel that sense of loneliness. But it is something that happens when your new friendships aren't as deep as the friendships that you shared in your old state, and it just takes time. But my favorite thing to do in a new state is to create an adventure list of all of the things that we want to do in our new town and in the surrounding area. Some things on my list are free and some things are expensive wish list kind of things, and then there's a whole lot of things in between. But then we plan to do something new every week from our adventure list. And this gives us something to look forward to, which helps with those feelings of loneliness. And when you get to go somewhere fun and do something fun every week, you can get your kids to invite their new friends along too. Other kids are much more likely to be friends with the new kid who's always doing something or going somewhere interesting. And you can also invite your new friends too, because it's a way to create great memories with new people. And if your kids are missing their old friends, let them have social media within your limits. And again, that's a completely personal preference, but it's just such an easy way for them to stay in touch and feel connected to their old friends. But help them to realize that they were the ones who left, so they have to work extra hard at staying in touch. And while their old friends' lives may have moved on, it doesn't mean that they've been forgotten. Fear of missing out, or FOMO, is a big thing as well. So the more stuff that you're doing in the evenings and the weekends, the more it gives your kids to post about on social media, so they can show that their friends in their old state, that they are busy and enjoying their life. And then they'll feel less like they're missing out on something in their old state. And again, the same goes for you. The busier you are in your new life, and the more you get out and the more you explore, and the more you become part of your community, the less you are going to move and miss your old state. So I hope that this has helped you feel just a little bit more confident as you guide your children on their journey to the new state that you're moving to. So to recap, those 6 stages of moving are: number 1, thinking about your move. Number 2, deciding where to move to. Number 3, planning your move. Number 4, making the move. Number 5, settling into your new hometown. And number 6 is a few months in, when you've been living in your new state for a few months. And at each stage, the better prepared you are and the more confident you are about your decisions to move, the easier it is going to be to lead by example and guide your children through all of the emotions that they're feeling and help them deal with their fears and their doubts. And if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed or you want guidance for planning your move, the quickest and easiest way to plan your move and to feel confident about all of your decisions is to download my Make the Move guide at alisonwoodall.com or by clicking the link in the notes below. Because through a series of short videos and detailed check sheets, I will show you how to find the perfect town that is going to suit all of your needs and create a budget that accounts for all of your costs. And then I will help and guide you as you plan for every aspect of your move, from finding the right realtor and the perfect home, all the way through to booking a moving truck and packing up and hitting the road. Because the better you plan, the more that you can relax and enjoy the amazing life-changing adventure that is moving to a new state.